Really appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about what's happening in Ohio, but probably just to kind of break it down into our own districts, because I represent West Central Ohio right now. As Brad says, well, we're still waiting on what our districts might finally look like. We're still waiting. But, my district's unique. I've got about 86,000 manufacturing jobs, and I also have the largest farm income producing district in the state of Ohio. So I run a kind of a parallel course. But one of the things that's so important is this. One of the things that we have to have in my district is energy, and I mean a lot of it. Because if we don't have the energy, I've got steel mills, I got float glass, I have the largest food processing plant in the world in my district. I have probably the largest in the United States pre-manufactured furniture maker in the country located in the district. So I've got the Central Foundry in Defiance from General Motors, and I don't want to miss anybody, but I mean, we use a lot of energy. And so when you're thinking about what's happening out there today across the globe, it worries me, because I know being on E&C that I've talked to a lot of people from not only across the country but across the globe. And one of the things that they were saying, just a few short years ago, that when the United States was able to outproduce Saudi Arabia and Russia in oil production any given day and becoming the largest natural gas producer in the world, you had a lot of companies and folks across the world telling me this. They wanted to come to the United States to do what? Build their plants here, because they said, we might have cheaper labor, they say, where they're from, but they didn't have any natural resources of any kind. And so they said, you know what, we'll much prefer to pay a higher wage in the United States and bring those plants here. But we're going to see that all end if we don't get this thing back on track. And especially when I look at, across, when we got the tax bill passed and signed into law, we had an explosion across this country. And everybody wanted to do one thing: expand, hire more people, build onto their plants, buy more trucks. I mean, it was just as exponential, just go right down the line of what happened. But, what we've seen happen since this administration's come in is like a contracting of everything that we saw happen. And I never believed I could, in my entire life, my dad served down there for 30 years, that somebody could come into the White House and destroy this country in 6 months, and did. Because when you look at the policies that they've implemented and try to get across to the American people aren't buying it. And this is what I tell people, my colleagues. I say, you know what, when you're back home, especially now, the price of gas has gone up almost $2 since President Biden was sworn into office. And when you look at that number, one of the things I tell folks is this: look at the gas pumps when you go fill up. Well, you'll start finding that people are going to be doing this. This is what happened the last time when gas got so high. People are buying 2-3 gallons of gas at a time. Why? Because they can't afford anymore. Well, I have plants across my district that this is what they ended up doing. In the last go-around, they said, we don't want to lose our employees, but we want to make sure that those people stay with us. So they started having people work Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday, 10-hour shifts, so I only had to drive to work 4 days. So, we're looking at a real crisis out there, because 82.5% of everything that comes in the state of Ohio is trucked. And when you also think about what's happening with fertilizer that's coming in from around the world, those prices are skyrocketing. And when I look across my district and across the state of Ohio in this country, you're going to see food prices just skyrocket. And one of the things that when I'm in the grocery store, and everybody knows who you are, that people say, did you notice all these empty shelves? And I'm standing right in front of it. Yeah, I see them. They're empty, all right. But over the weekend, not only did I notice it, but somebody brought it up to me a day later. They said, you know what? You can't find pasta. Pasta is missing. And so all of a sudden, we're starting to see people out there trying to buy certain products that they cannot find. And so, we're looking at an issue out there for people that I think it's this election coming up. Just, I want to turn it over to Brad. But this is what my dad would always call, this is going to be a pocketbook year. Even though we have the world crisis with Ukraine going on, the American people, in my opinion, are going to be focused on one thing. It's going to be all about their pocketbook. When you think about inflation being at, going up about 8%, the people from getting the pay raises they had in the last year, losing it to inflation and actually coming out 2.8% worse. So people are going to look what they've got in their wallet, and they're going to say, you know what, this isn't working. And so no matter what the president says, who's to blame, the blame comes back home real quick. And so from food prices, to fuel prices, to, you know, wages not being able to keep up, I predict that this election cycle is going to be a huge one when it comes to people saying, what have I got in my wallet? And there's going to be a lot less in it. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Bob. Bob touched on a lot of important issues. I want to bring up one issue that's near and dear to my heart, and that's winning. So, you know, I represent Cincinnati, and we have the Cincinnati Bearcats and the Cincinnati Bengals this year. So I just want to remind the rest of the state maybe where the football capital of the world is right now. It's in Cincinnati. But competition's good, right? And competition, and I think we're lucky to have a country that has 50 states, because the idea is those states can compete amongst themselves, which is good for the country as a whole. And in that competition, we are so grateful for Intel choosing Ohio. And we know that our governor and people in Columbus worked very hard to make this happen for the benefit of Intel, for the benefit of our country, and for the benefit of our state and the people who live there. So thank you for listening to Ohio and coming to Ohio. We really appreciate that, and it's going to make a big difference. You know, as a doctor, as a soldier, I didn't intend when I became a doctor to join the Army, but I did, and then 9/11 happened, and I go to war, and all these things happened, and I think maybe I should run for office. And I looked at Washington, and I said, well, we have people making business decisions that never ran a business, people making healthcare decisions that never saw a patient, people making military decisions that never served. And I think that's what our founders had in mind, is for people to come from all walks of life and to bring those experiences to the table. That's what we hope to do. So I have a keen interest in our national security, as you might imagine, and in healthcare, and then all that goes with that, which really covers a lot, our national security, our national health security. So that ties into supply chain. That ties into how we deliver healthcare. Look, I've been a patient and a physician in both, in all of the above, VA, DOD, and civilian. So I see a lot of experiences in the healthcare arena and what works, what doesn't work, and how we can do better. I chair the GOP Doctors Caucus. We have 18 members. It's doctors, dentists, and pharmacists. And we've been pretty influential, and we've gotten a lot of things done. So right now, and I'm on Intelligence Committee, so we've got the situation in Ukraine, but that's just one more. You know, we can't take our eye off the ball and what's going on in China and other places where our adversaries want to destroy us. And Mr. Bass, I'm glad to see you here and shaking your head to that, because you have the same concerns that we do, and especially in your neighborhood. And so we have to continue to make sure that we can bolster our supply chain, and what we can't do on our own, we have to do with our allies. And that's the only way I think we're going to really feel secure as a nation. We learned the hard way. You know, the Obama administration said manufacturing's done here in America. Well, it wasn't just the Obama administration. This really took place over 50, 60 years. And that's what we've got to bring back. Tax Cuts and Jobs Act did a great job of that. We had no inversions since Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And now you have a president that wants to do Build Back Broke and increase taxes and make us less competitive in the world. And it's going to do just the opposite of what COVID really showed us we have to be concerned about, which is our supply chain. If you'd have told me when I was in Iraq that my medical supplies, my protective equipment, my pharmaceuticals relied on China, I would say, how did we ever get here? Especially our military. So we've got a lot of making up to do. We've got a lot to do, and I think Ohio can be a key part of that. We've got the infrastructure, we've got the people that want to work, and we've got the environment to bring all of that back. And so appreciate you working with us as stakeholders to make this happen. And it doesn't have to just be Ohio, but of course I'll be pushing for that. But there's a lot we can do and a lot that we want to do. And we have a good delegation in Ohio as well. You here tonight, various backgrounds, right? And we've got a farmer, and we've got good people that stepped up that want to take care of things, that take care of Ohioans and take care of all of Americans, and that tie into a peaceful world. And we can't be relying on another country for chips. So thank you.
All right. Well, being the young guy on the totem pole, maybe not young guy, but the guy last but not least, bringing up the rear, everything that, both my colleagues, Bob and Brad, have said have touched a lot of what happens. And, Bob, from the energy side, I live currently in the southeastern portion of the state of Ohio where the big shale play came, and it was a game changer for the state of Ohio. And we were very blessed with that and had that opportunity. Tony's in here, AEP, Central Ohio Coal. I got to get inside the big muskie. You all won't know what that means, but that's a big deal, the largest dragline in the world. But, not being able to utilize those natural resources that we had is a big deal. It's a concern of our citizens and our constituents. My district is probably one of the most unique here. And Jim, thank you for doing this. And Shannon, thank you for locating. You bought my buddy's hog farm. Part of that's his hog farm that got that Intel project. Now he can't find land to move his hog operation again. But I went through 4 special elections in 6 months. And there's a lot of people in this room that were very, very helpful. And it was a 2017, 2018 election for the midterms, and it was going to be the big rating on President Trump at that time. So it became a national attention. But what became national attention is the district represented rural, very rural, which is my home county of Muskingum County, and then Columbus, Ohio, where the football powerhouse of all football teams is located, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Thank you, Philip.
Number what?
Bad year, but we're up there every other time. So that's what makes this district, but it makes it fun and the dynamic that you see with that. So, like Bob and Brad said, it's the cost of living. It's the rising cost. My mother is 82 years old. It's fun to hear her stories going to the grocery store because everyone knows who she is also. So they say, tell Troy we can't get meat anymore. Tell Troy we can't do this. Tell Troy we can't do that. Can't get this. This is too high. Gas is too high. I can't wait till winter's over because I got a motorcycle, so I'm going to save on gas and ride that around the district. But that's what's impacting. It's always a good time. I don't know if these guys have as much fun as I do. I love going to Walmart when I land or Kroger. I try to do both of them at the same time. You cannot get any better vibe of what's going on with your constituents than going into the Kroger and taking 45 minutes just to get some grapes and a couple avocados and some eggs. So, and then the topper is Walmart.
That's correct.
Yeah, the topper is Walmart. And I'll end on this. It was 2 weeks ago, and I told Laura, I'm going down. You always kind of say, like, aren't you that Congress guy? And you go, oh boy, here we go. Oh man, is it good or bad? So this African American gentleman came up to me and said, you're that congressman. And I said, yeah, we're in the bread aisle. And I said, yes, I am. He said, hey, thanks for what you do. I appreciate your service. I said, oh, thank you. That's really nice of you. So we keep going. We kind of walk out at the same time. We exit the store at the same time. And he said, hey, Mr. Balderson, would you tell Mr. President Joe Biden to quit taking my beep-de-beep money so I can keep it and spend it? So that's a true thing that happens out there, and it's what the district is talking about. And, this Intel thing has just got Central Ohio and the whole state of Ohio really, really pumped up and excited. I just was on the phone with Congressman T-Berry prior to this, and, the anxiousness that's out there, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and we look forward to working with all of you, Shannon. So thank you.
I don't really have a question, but I've been obsessing about what's happening in Ukraine, and so anything you can say on the topic of Ukraine.
I'll just start by saying this is probably the most horrific thing we have seen since the evil that existed during World War II, and especially the attack on innocent people, civilians. It's a total violation of Geneva Convention. I think that in one way or another, there is something that's not registering correctly with the leader of Russia. And in many ways, I don't blame the Russian people because they get one story, and he's very good at making things up and selling a different story. What he hopes to gain is beyond my imagination, and it's almost to me reacting like a paranoia, as though Ukraine and NATO and everyone is just about to try and take over Russia, which is not the case. And he's the one that he's planned this out. He's working it with China. And I don't really know the end result, but I do know this. Ukrainians do not want to be Russians. You know, he talks about Russian-speaking people in there, and he wants to deliver Russia back to them. Well, they could have left. They could have gone to Russia at any time. That wasn't an issue. But they didn't, and they don't want to. And I was there right before Christmas, and it was amazing because Christmas decorations up. You know, we've been talking about this for a long time. Our intelligence community got it right. They said he's going to do it. And, you know, I can tell you, you know, as you study the posture of troops and surveil them, they weren't planning an exercise. They weren't just getting there in a defensive posture. You don't make sure you have all your medical assets and blood and everything else if you're not planning to go in. So the intelligence community had it right. We didn't react. We're reacting to their action rather than preempting it, because all the things we're talking about trying to get to them now, we could have gotten in before. Now it's harder to get it in, and you know, there would have been much controversy about having them buy some jets before. So what is taking place is thoroughly disgusting, and there should be no country in the world that finds this acceptable in any way, shape, or form, because next it could be you. And this is a fight between freedom and communism. It just really is. And they're fighting the fight. They're fighting the fight for all of the free world. And God bless them for doing it. We're finding out the weaknesses of the Russian forces, but they're still overwhelming compared to what Ukraine has. At the end of the day, I just don't see a good end for Russia or Putin in any way, shape, or form. But I hope it's just a bad day for him. And at the end of the day, we can help rebuild Ukraine. But I do have concerns that it may be a bad day for all of us.
If I could just comment too, because I was over in the Ukraine with Energy and Commerce several years ago. But, you know, looking even back then, and especially when we were over in Belgium and talking with the folks over there, the Russians have been working on this for years, because one of the things right off the bat they were doing is they were sending, you know, their agents and to these countries to do what? Get with these green groups to say what? We don't want any energy production in our countries. We want to be green. We don't want any of that bad stuff here. We don't want any pipelines. They don't want anything. So where are they at today? You know, Western Europe being 25% dependent on oil from Russia, 40% of their natural gas. But, you know, the thing is, though, as Brad said, you know, what's the end game movie for this guy? Okay, you're destroying their cities. You drove 2.7 million people out of the country already. You know, you're killing the civilians. And then, but at the same time, people don't always realize, because I was a student of history, you know, again, you go back to what Hitler did, you know, they saw Ukraine for what? It's the breadbasket of Europe. You know, when you can produce 4 or 5 or 6% of, or not 4, or being number 4 or 5 or 6 in grain or corn production in a year that's exported across the globe, look what that does. And so now what's going to happen to our prices and the world prices when no crops get planted this year in the Ukraine? You know, Stalin killed 4 to 7, they don't know. It was either 4 to 7 million Ukrainians. You talk to Ukrainians, they're not really happy with Russians. This is a long-standing thing with them. Because what Stalin did was that he killed the Ukrainians and brought who in? The Russians to take the land. So when you look at what's been happening in the Ukraine, and then with all, you know, you look at the southern end of the country, that's the Black Sea. What happens with the Black Sea? We can bring in your energy through that part of the country. You cut that off. So all of a sudden, Europe's cut off there. You've cut off your wheat and corn production. And so there's all these things going on at the same time over there. But, you know, for this guy to think now that the Ukrainians are going to, you know, embrace him and hug him and think he's some kind of a, you know, savior to him, no. You know, and the other question I can't really understand is this. When they say, well, are these war, you know, they talk about different things. It was a war crime when he went across the border. I mean, where people aren't getting these, you know, red and green lights here to say what's going on. But this guy is evil. He's a dictator. And, you know, for anybody that saw that Russian news reporter, what she did, I tell you, probably the bravest thing I've seen anybody do in my entire life, because she knows what's probably going to happen to her when she jumped in front of that camera and did that YouTube. So, but the Russians are being pretty much held back. But when all of a sudden the Russian world cuts them off, but this is the thing, this guy's got his finger on the button. As Brad said, this guy's dangerous, and so he's saying, I don't care if I invaded this country, you give them any help, we might go to the nuclear option now.
We've heard a lot from everybody about this forthcoming conference on USICA competes, Bipartisan Innovation Act, whatever you want to call it. Curious, you all sit on a variety of different committees. Have you heard kind of the next steps on that conference, what your ultimate thoughts are? I know you didn't have a huge say in the process last go around in the House. How are House Republicans going to stake their claim in conference?
I turn my microphone off, so I'll use my outside voice too. It became somewhat challenging for me. As Shannon said, I developed quite a relationship with Intel since it is located in the district. And I was the one on the stage that had the big bright light on me with Al, and the other end looking up at me when Senator Portman and Senator Brown said, okay, we got the 32-page CHIP Act done, now you got to get it over the finish line. So, in dealing with Secretary Raimondo, I've had conversations with her. I mean, I've been very, very engaged. Al and I and Laura and Terry sat down last Wednesday together. I'm hoping for input from the Republican side, because we did not have any in the Competes Act. And, talking with the Secretary, when I talked to her the second time, and she said, you need to get Republican support. And I said, Madam Secretary, this has got everything thrown. I mean, it's a 3,000-page bill that came from a 32-page bill. We need a CHIPS Act. That's what we need. We don't need all this other stuff. And I can't convince anybody on the Republican side, nor do I really want to try to convince anybody to vote for something like this. I've spoke to Mr. Portman, Rob, a couple times. I'm hoping that he's one of the conferees. I don't know who it'll be. Leader McCarthy knows where I am on this, and he knows how vital it is to not only the congressional district, but also the state of Ohio, because this is a game changer. It goes from $20 billion to 100. It goes from 2 fab facilities to up to 8 fab facilities. So this is a big deal. And here's the other thing. And, the Europeans just did their CHIPS Act. It started at $52 billion, go figure, since ours was. They've lowered it now to $49 billion. And there's a really good chance, and Al and Laura and I were talking, I mean, they might beat us, and that can't happen. I mean, this is America, and that cannot happen. You probably shouldn't have gave me that one, too. So I'm hopeful, prayerful that, the Speaker will work with the Republican side. It's kind of like Brad said about Tim Ryan. I said something to Tim about it too, and instead of screaming at us on the House floor, get to the table. I mean, have a role here. I communicated with Joyce Beatty 2 Fridays ago, just the importance of this and what it means, and she specifically said, the Speaker wants this done too, and I said, okay, well, let's go. So I think May is kind of what we're leaning to have it done by, but don't take my word on that by any means. So we want to get it done, and we need to get it done. I got a lot of car dealer buddies that are out of inventory. So, and one of them's a member of Congress. Well, 2 actually, but Mike Kelly, who I sit beside.